Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, an idiot boss decides to fire an old man that worked at his company for 40 years. The reason? He ended up getting disabled and the boss misjudged how important this old man really was. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. So I used to work at a well-established IT company. You would not be blown away by what we produced in the early days, but the business went from 0 to 100 and I was there the whole way. I did not actually specialize in any of the IT stuff and the technical areas, but I dealt with most of the shipments, deliveries and orders for the company. This meant I sought out the best deals on the components we needed to make our technology and ensured it was all delivered smoothly to the warehouses and factories up and down the country. I worked there for 40 years and for the entire time it was only me doing this role. I think it's because as the business grew, I managed to keep up with everything and simply ordered more stock and ship it to more places, so management did not see it necessarily to scale up my one-man department along with all the others such as sales. Anyway, you will see why that was all relevant later. For most of these 40 years, my time working for this company was lovely. I worked in the original office block and was quite close with the owner, we got on well and my pay was decent. As the company started growing, I saw less of him, we would spend less time just bantering, and all in all our friendship became nothing more than an employer-employee relationship. This did not overly bother me, I had other friends and at the time, it wasn't as if he turned into some tyrannical bully. However, that all changed. Of course, after 40 years, to nobody's surprise, I aged. With that came some health problems, the main one being iron deficiency, causing me to lose my balance easily. This changed my life forever 2 years ago when this whole ordeal went down. I lost my balance at the top of some stairs and came crashing down them. I broke my leg in 3 places and during the healing process I ended up getting an awful infection which forced me to get an amputation on my right leg all the way up to my knee. I do have crutches, but given the rest of my body not being in the most peak condition, a wheelchair is what I usually go for. I was off work for a total of around 3 days during this time. If you're wondering how that's possible, well, I was able to do most of my work in the hospital on my laptop. The only times I couldn't was the day of the accident, the day of the amputation and the day after that where I was still unconscious. Not much happened while I was not ordering and overseeing deliveries. There are the odd days where not much needs to be done. Of course, I would have been entitled to time off, but I figured that since I can do it from my laptop, I might as well, and at this time I still thought relatively high of my boss and I knew things would crumble if I stepped away. I didn't want to do that to him. Alas, I quickly learned that he didn't think the same. When I came back into work, things quickly became different. "Why haven't you been in?" said boss David, asked when I wheeled through the door. This is now 3 weeks after the amputation. I emailed you about my accident, sir, and the amputation." I was utterly confused. Surely he knew. "Well, yes, but you were still completing your work, so why weren't you actually in the building?" "Because I was still in recovery at the hospital." "Well, that just isn't good enough. I cannot have slackers here. And I certainly hope this will not impact your work quality." "It won't," I replied as he stormed off. I was at a loss for words at his demeanor. I got to work doing everything I usually do. David hadn't come by my desk for many months, but that day he did. "Brent, what's the meaning of this?" he asked, shoving paper in my face. On said paper, a section was highlighted. It was the outgoing money for components and orders for the past 6 months. "Care to explain why you spent an extra £5,000 this month?" "Well, because you asked for additional stock of the fans," I replied. "Well, this careless spending just isn't okay. Do better." "David, the spends fluctuate all the time. What is this about?" I asked, but he didn't answer me and just walked off. The rest of the day was fine. I got a few cards and a bouquet of roses from some of the other staff, which was rather sweet. I left them on my desk and they were gone the next day. I have no doubt about who did it. "Brent, you're late." The next day David was waiting by my desk when I wheeled in. "Sorry, the lift was so full, so I took the next one. Hence why I'm just under 1 minute later. He had to be messing with me." "Sorry doesn't solve anything. I don't appreciate this sudden slacking and tardiness from your end." "Sorry, sir." With that he walked away. By this point, even some of the other staff began picking up on his weird behavior, and most of them thought, as I had began to, he was trying to silently fire me due to my new disability. I did not want to admit it, but the events that unfolded a week later confirmed our suspicions. These random nasty encounters continued for about a week. Each day he could cook up something to claim that I had done something wrong, and by the end of that week I had enough. David, just stop. Yes, I ordered an additional 6 units of monitors this week because we needed them. I've worked this way for 40 years and everything has gone smoothly. You've been targeting me like this for the past week or so and I wanted to stop now. We used to be good mates. Not a clue where that went. I ranted at him after one of his remarks. Who do you think you are speaking to me like that? Yeah, sure, we used to be mates. That's before you got old and then decided to become a cripple. Gasps were heard around the room. Oh, shut up, you're all thinking it. David threw his arms up and faced the others while saying this. Well, firstly, I did not mean to become a cripple. Second, you're old too. And thirdly, why on earth does either one of those things give you the right to become such an ass suddenly? How dare you speak to me like that? You have no right and you're way out of line. And I'll have you know it's because I know that it will make you a worse worker. You've just been slipping up constantly and I've had enough. I haven't though. My figures are excellent and have only risen with inflation or excess stock. I spent hours searching for new manufacturers to save this company money by finding good deals and good quality products to avoid a lawsuit. Rubbish, anyone can do this job. In fact, I'm sure the developers could code a computer program to do whatever you think is so crucial to this company easily. Okay, get them to do it then. I'd had enough and grabbed my bag and wheeled out of the room. Thank goodness you're leaving. I cannot have a cripple on my team and just if that wasn't clear, don't bother coming in tomorrow because you are so fired. He snickered at the end and clearly hoped some of the others would too, but nobody made a sound. I was shocked at myself, leaving a company I'd been with for so long. But it felt right. I had not worked all those years to be treated like my job was not important. The next week I looked for new jobs and found something interesting fairly quickly. I got through the interview process and started my new job the week after. It was a similar role to my last one and the pay was not too bad. Of course I would trade it any day to be working for the old David, but I knew that would never be the case. Nothing will be able to erase those words that he said to me. I got a call a few months after starting my new job then. Hello? I asked. Brent, we really need you, man. David won't admit it, but the place is falling apart. The developers tried to do your job and man has it backfired. The program just orders the stuff we need, but everything seems to be adding up like 10 times as much as you spent, we just don't get it. David's assistant was on the other line. I'm sorry, but you know what went down. I cannot help you guys. We had a brief chat and he understood where I was coming from and then I hung up. The next day, another call. Hey Brent, I have a proposition for you. It was David. What do you want, David? I will give you your old job back. Isn't that great? No, thanks. What? No, I would never work for you again. I will triple your pay. Not worth it, I said, even though I did debate it a little bit. Brent, we need you, please. We tried resetting the computer and it ended up buying the cheapest stuff and now we are under attack by multiple people claiming our quality is awful. Someone said their device burned their leg. Sounds rough, I said, relishing in his downfall. Please Brent, I'm sorry man. Nope. Whatever you... He then continued to throw a bunch of ableist remarks and slurs at me. I'm not gonna be repeating them here. I hung up before he could finish. The next day I saw that he called me a few times and left voicemails once again apologizing to me. I blocked the number. If he was not such an ass on the phone, I might have considered helping him out a little, but nope, this was the bet he made and I'll be damned if I didn't make him sleep in it. Through some news outlets online, I learned just how quickly his downfall was. Overall, the company was sued for £20 million for the faulty products that were the consequence of cheap and unresearched components. A further £5 million was lost on nothing but spending more than they had to, getting ripped off basically. To be honest, after this whole fiasco, I don't feel bad, and on a better note, I ended up getting a hefty raise at my new job. I was saving them a bunch of money. And a good handful of my old workmates ended up getting jobs here too. This business is now growing and filling the place of its previous competitor and my previous employer, and I could not be more thankful. Oh, how could I forget? For a cherry on top, David ended up getting arrested for fraud. As it turns out, as a last-ditch attempt to save money, he started accepting deliveries without paying, claiming to pay once doing a count, only he never paid. And now guys, we have an update to the story and it reads like this. So a few months after I had started my new job, I received a letter from a solicitor. It informed me that they were pursuing legal action against my former employer and David for wrongful termination due to my disability. It turned out that firing an employee for becoming disabled is against disability discrimination laws in the UK. The solicitor said they had strong evidence from my coworkers about the targeted harassment I endured after my accident, as well as admissions from David about not wanting cripples on his team. David tried to claim that my work performance had declined, but the solicitor was able to show through documentation that all my metrics were the same or better than before my injury. They also noted that I had continued working successfully from the hospital during my recovery period. The case went to an employment tribunal. David looked nervous being questioned under oath about his comments. Several of my former coworkers also testified about witnessing the discrimination. In the end, the tribunal ruled in my favor and awarded me a handsome financial settlement for damages. It was extremely satisfying to see some justice served after the awful way David had treated me. The lawsuit only further ruined his credibility and finances on top of the company's business troubles falling apart without me. It seemed all of David's nasty actions had come back to severely bite him in the end. I was able to put that chapter of my life behind me, having proven my value and receiving compensation for his wrongdoings. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. I, 25 female, am engaged to my fiancé Joey, 26 male. He recently had surgery on his leg and hip, but there were complications and he's been sick and weak since. We try not to ask for help, but this has put a big financial strain on us to the point where we have spent our wedding savings on his recovery. We are fine with this because if we need to have a courthouse wedding, we are cool with it, we just want him to be healthy. But we did set up a temporary donation page to help with some of the expenses. A friend of mine, Carla, 25 female, donated about $10 about a month ago, and I reached out to her to thank her. Last week we posted an update, not asking for more money, but just to let people know that Joey has had another setback and the doctors are creating an all-new treatment plan for him. Carla commented publicly and said the following: "I'm beginning to question if he has actually been sick for this long or if you all are just trying to get more money for your wedding. Who takes this long to recover from a surgery, especially when you're an athlete?" I said, "I'm very offended and appalled that you would accuse us of faking anything. Maybe you're just having a bad day or a moment of bad judgment. But how shamefully low of you," she replied. "I want my donation back unless you can show proof that he is sick. In a hospital bed or sitting in a doctor's office, anything?" I sent her $10 to get her off our backs, but I also sent her a video with Joey's approval, the proof she asked for. One of the concerns Joey has had is that he will get severely nauseous if he eats protein, which is what he's supposed to be doing, and when he overexerts himself, which he does sometimes. I sent her a video of him dry heaving into an emesis bag in the middle of PT. So now one of his doctors asked us to record his PT so they can see the progression of him not feeling well to hopefully make some adjustments. So I did not take this video just to send to Carla, but to me it seemed like solid proof since she was asking for it. She said, "What the hell? I have emetophobia. I didn't know this, and this just triggered me so bad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I feel like I've been traumatized." I said, "So now you have $10 more to process this trauma and therapy." And yeah, ripe stars, now we will continue to the Am I the A-hole story for today. I, 31 male, met my ex-girlfriend, 29 female, on a dating app 7 years ago. She had a son, 6 months at the time, she was with multiple guys and ended up getting pregnant. Still doesn't know who's the bio father, but it wasn't that much of an issue since she seemed like a great person and we had a lot in common. After a few weeks of chatting and talking online, we went on a first date and had a great time. After that, we just started hanging out whenever she could, and shortly after, she introduced me to her son. Few months into our relationship, we moved in together to save money, since both of us were renting at the time. I started helping take care of her kid whenever I could, and we really grew fond of each other. He even started calling me Papa, and we just went along with it since my girlfriend didn't mind. Almost 5 years into our relationship, she told me that she wants to break up because I became boring and not an active person like I used to be. We used to go on hikes and travel around the country on weekends, and that I work too much. Honestly, it was a rough time after that and I had a hard time accepting it, although not as hard as having to explain a 5-year-old that he'll no longer be seeing his dad, but I managed to get over it after a few months, found a better job that allowed me to work remotely and had a lot of free time, so I managed to explore a few other countries. A few days ago, I got a call from my ex. She said that she is sick and is in the hospital. They removed one of her breasts, but recently they found a tumor in her other breast and will need to have it removed as well. She is scared that she might die if it doesn't work out and asked me if I would be willing to become her son's legal guardian and adopt him since she has no one else to ask. Unfortunately though, I live a different lifestyle now. I travel a lot and invest in myself, so I told her that I cannot do that. She told me that her son misses me and would love to see me, but I said no again and she started crying and calling me names before cutting the call. I talked to my sister and parents about this and they told me that it's a effed up thing to refuse it, and after all those years spent with them especially. I feel like trash now. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to adopt my dying ex-girlfriend's child? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. And a comment on Reddit said, not the a-hole, this is not your child and not your responsibility. It sounds like you were a good father figure while your ex was in your life, but as soon as she ended things, your responsibilities also ended. Are we gonna expect ex-boyfriends to pay for children they did not father now? If you wanted to bring this child back into your life, then I would say go for it. However, if your lifestyle does not suit a child and one who would be suffering the trauma of losing his mother to boot, then it is not on either one of your interests to do so. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, but I would encourage you to really think about this and not instantly rule it out. It is not effed up for you to refuse it, but if it's true that she has no one else to ask, then you might be saving this child who is getting dealt a really bad hand in all of this from a really bad life. At least strongly consider it if you have the means, but ultimately, if you decide against it, it's not on you. Update: after I made the original post, I've spent a bit thinking about this. So I reached out to a friend, trying to get some info about, and she didn't want to say much and told me that I should come over. I ended up going, ex and her friend were there, kiddo was at school. Honestly, felt completely different than I was expecting to feel. Anyways, she had the other breast removed, quickly found out that it spread out and she was just starting with her therapy. Ex suggested to stay until the kid returns. I remember what you guys said, but I just couldn't do it. I stayed because I just wanted to see. I guess some of you were right about him remembering me or not. Walks in, says hi and disappears somewhere, I guess his room, walks back after a minute and starts staring at me. Papa? Papa? And runs at me. My ex started crying out loud and I teared up, barely holding myself from crying. I don't know if it's because of her crying or because of the kiddo remembering. It was a great day. To cut it short, I started visiting her 2 to 3 times a week, but sadly, things were starting to get worse. Seeing her getting weaker and weaker, I decided to go through with the guardianship, hired a lawyer, did tons of paperwork, interviews, investigation, and finally found the bio dad. My ex narrowed a list of people, and even without the DNA test, you could see from miles that the kiddo was a mini version of one of the guys. Both ex's mom and bio dad signed the consent and waiver, but even if they didn't, they probably wouldn't have a chance to make a difference. After 2 months, the judge made his decision and I finally became a legal guardian. Sadly, ex passed away roughly 3 months ago, after which I started the adoption process, but that still goes on. I had 2 court hearings so far and another one will be in 2 weeks. So far things went well and hoping for the best. I know that I missed a lot of details, not sure if it would be important but also due to character limit, but I'll be answering any questions you guys have in the comments below. Either way, the next one is titled Crazy Entitled Karen. The cast is pretty simple, just replace me with N for neighbor and a little bit of backstory. So this happened around May and I lived next to a married couple where the wife has a garden, which from what I've heard she's had for years. You might think it's just a few pretty blossoms and bushes, but nope. Her entire front left side of her yard and front yard, those patches of dirt you would see next to the stairs leading to the door, was covered on various plants, flowers and shrubs of all different sizes, shapes and colors, etc. Enter our EKs, both male, with the oldest being 11 and the youngest 9. These 2 live across the street on the right from us and had a nasty habit of crossing the street to pick N flowers with amazing skill, making bouquets for various reasons like special occasions, events and sometimes just to make mama happy. The worst part is that EM would tell them to do it. N has repeatedly told the two to stop to the point where she went over to talk to their mom about it. From what I've heard, it did not go too well. Apparently, EM did not want to buy bouquets at the store because they were too expensive and the drive is supposedly just a waste of gas, plus it's not fair. You have all of those flowers and you won't share? How greedy. Anyway, she would call the cops, but she knew they would just give her a warning or take EM's side, since around here the cops are pretty easy to lie to. Instead though, she decided to take matters into her own hands. A week later, when I left with my brother for a vacation from the house, I found thorny bushes scattered around her gardens, mostly in areas that made it extremely difficult to get through without getting pricked or cut a few hundred times. I found out she planted firethorns, blackthorn, and my favorite creeping juniper bushes. When I asked, she simply said, "I wish them good luck." Not even a week later, I hear banging on the neighbor's door. Looking out the window, I see the EM fuming in rage while her kids were next to her, equally upset. Some even had bandages on their arm, leg or face. She now looked less of a Karen and more of a semi-fat soccer mom with quite a bit of cash to her name. The haircut was not the "being me your manager," but instead the "my son owns insert random unrelated company that is not even that serious." N, may I? EM cuts her off. "How dare you hurt my children?" N, explain to me how I hurt them. I did nothing wrong. EM, nothing wrong? Nothing wrong? Look at them. Presenting her kids to her full of bandages, very upset and possibly on the verge of crying. N, let me guess, hurt while playing? EM, no, your death garden did this. My kids are scared of your yard because those plants were hurting them. Do you know how much money it costs to buy them new clothes because their stuff is getting ripped and torn from the thorns? N, well, why were they in my garden in the first place? If they stayed away and stopped picking at my yard, this wouldn't have happened and you would not be yelling like you have no brain. I planted them because I thought they were beautiful. Not only that, but burglary exists everywhere, so it's perfect protection. After a little bit of back and forth, the EM leaves, but not without the threat of suing her and demanding the thorny bushes be taken away. Luckily, the kids stopped picking at her yard while EM gave death glares N's way whenever the opportunity showed. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.